Every year, EA promises a more authentic NFL experience, and the question isn't whether Madden 27 has more presentation features, it's whether any of them actually matter. And while some of these additions feel like nice extras, a handful of them have the potential to change how Madden feels every single time you boot up the game. After reading through the presentation deep dive, one thing is pretty clear here. They're trying to build further on what they started implementing last year, which is bringing NFL Sundays more to life. So let's jump into the first part of this, which is dynamic broadcast packages, which is something a lot of us have asked about for years. And again, if you've been around my channel, you know I'm into the small details because they matter. It says one of the biggest additions this year is seasonal variation across our broadcast packages for Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Each seasonal broadcast package will include the following: a different theme song, custom commentary, game intro graphics, a custom score bug, end of quarter banners, logo wipes, and replay wipes. These presentation changes are designed to make those windows in the calendar feel distinct. They help anchor games during those times of year, which is something football fans instinctively understand. The league feels different in late October than it does on Thanksgiving. Christmas football has its own tone too, and it says we wanted those moments to come through in the presentation. And the cool thing is these aren't going to be just for franchise and superstar mode. It's also going to be in regular play now, online head-to-head, and even ultimate team. And it's not just about the packages themselves, it's more about the broadcast details. It says here they're going to tell a better story possession by possession, which is something the game has desperately needed for a while. It says we've continued to invest in drive starters because they are one of the best places to build narrative naturally during a game. In Madden 27, drive starters now include replays to expand storytelling and help key moments carry forward into the next possession. This gives the game more continuity and allows the broadcast to feel like it's following the same thread the player is. It says they're also supporting new story types through banners and commentary, including examples like possession summary and upcoming games. And they're also updating the new halftime report, which we saw make its debut last year with the replays and things like that, but this year they're adding more onto it. It says a real NFL broadcast rarely treats your game like it exists in a vacuum, and it says that we heard your feedback and we know that halftime reports are one of the best opportunity to widen that lens, give you context, and remind you that there is a whole story going on around you. So this year they included some new halftime segments including impact players, playoff hunt, and improved first half coverage of the users' games. The goal is to make halftime feel like a true checkpoint in a larger NFL day. You get a sense of where your game stands, what's happening elsewhere, and which performances are standing out across the league. And much like the halftime show, they're also doing this with the weekly recap, which I've seen the weekly recap playing the game early, and I think they did an awesome job on this year. Obviously, last year in 25, it was nice to see what they did with halftime and weekly recaps, but we knew that there was definitely more that they could fit in there, and they've done that this year. It says that they've expanded the weekly recap with new segments that help players keep a stronger pulse on the league around them. This now includes injury reports, the MVP race, player of the week, playoff hunts, stat leaders, and trade alerts. All of these things that we've been asking about for years, and hey, we've seen this done in older games a long time ago. Better late than never, at least it's finally here. These segments are designed to make the league feel more active and more dynamic as your season unfolds. You should be able to feel momentum building, storyline shifting, and major developments happening beyond just your own team. But hey, if you're still here at this point of the video and you haven't subscribed, you might as well go ahead, subscribe, and join the family. That way you're up to date with all of the latest Madden news and updates. I'm trying to get to 700k subs really soon, and if everybody watching just subscribed, we can hit those numbers in a few days. Now let's move on to the next big segment of presentation, and that is building energy before the kickoff. Some of the most important moments happen right before the first snap. It says this year we included new primetime flows. Primetime football is different, the pacing is different, the stakes feel bigger, and the visuals should reflect that. It says our goal was to give these games more of their own identity so that they feel bigger before the kickoff even arrives. So they've added things like drone shows, which we saw last year in College Football 26. They've now brought that over to Madden. They have more licensed songs tied directly to teams. They have new story support through banners and commentary, and there's coach-specific and player-specific pre-game storytelling. A team entering to a song that fans associate with that franchise hits differently. The feeling of watching that team walk out, music flowing through the stadium, fans screaming, nothing compares to that euphoric feeling. A pre-game flow with stronger visual identity feels different too. These additions help push deeper into the pageantry and personality of NFL teams without losing sight of the overall vision. So when speaking of traditions, we know last year they did a lot of work with this. They gave teams more signature runouts, they added mascots, and they're continuing to build on that this year. So for Madden 27, they've included some new things which you could see up on the screen here. Things like the Bengals ruler of the jungle, which is going to be Chad Johnson in the pregame intro. The Broncos do the skydiving. You've got Lawrence Taylor ringing the bell for the Giants, which is pretty cool. You've got the Jaguars doing the zip line, and much more. And if you thought all that stuff was good, you're going to like some of this next stuff we're talking about right now, including new faces on the field and on the broadcast. It says football presentation feels more authentic when the people shaping the game are part of the experience. Licensed coordinators now appear in the press box and on the sideline during cutscenes, helping the game better reflect how coaching staffs are part of the visual language of the NFL broadcast. Coordinators are a real part of how games are discussed, how storylines are framed, and how broadcast cameras cover action between plays. Including them helps the presentation feel more complete. And this is true because you see it all the time in real life. When a certain team is playing, they talk about the offensive or defensive coordinator, and they cut a camera onto him, whether he's in the press box or on the sideline. Coordinators get almost as much attention as the head coaches do these days, so it's good that they've included that into the game. Now, one of my favorite parts about the presentation upgrade this year is dynamic weather. It got a major upgrade for Madden 27, with conditions now changing throughout the game instead of remaining static from kickoff to the final whistle. The snow can accumulate on the field in real time, while rain can intensify or clear up unexpectedly, creating a more dynamic and unpredictable experience. Weather will also have a stronger visual impact, with snow appearing on uniforms and players gradually getting dirtier, sweatier, and more worn down as the game progresses. The goal for all of this was to make weather feel like a true part of the football experience, and we saw that they added a lot of good stuff with weather last year, but now making it more dynamic was the next step of that. So you could start out a game and it's not snowing at all, but by the end of the game it's a snowstorm. Or the game could start out snowing and then later in the game the snow can ease up and not be as heavy. And along with this is also dynamic lighting and local kickoff times. Now, we already had dynamic lighting in Madden to a certain extent, but they've done a lot more work with it this year. They improved the visual authenticity by introducing authentic local kickoff times and updated sun positioning. In previous years, lighting was largely based around East Coast conditions, but now a 5:15 p.m. kickoff on the West Coast will feature more accurate sunlight, shadows, and atmosphere for that location. These changes also tie into broader upgrades to the game's skies, lightings, and weather systems, which is going to help make the game feel more connected to its time and place. And while this might be subtle, EA believes aligning the kickoff time, sun position, stadium, and sky more accurately will make the overall presentation feel closer to the real NFL broadcast. Now, all of that stuff so far sounds really good, but this next stuff really gets me going, and I know some people are going to agree here. One of those things is called secondary motion, which is something that EA focused heavily on this year. It adds more realistic movement and physics to players, equipment, and even referees. The new hanging mouthpieces that are finally in the game will naturally swing and react to player movement hits, while helmets, pads, and sleeves and other equipment have been updated to move and fit more realistically during the gameplay. EA also refined equipment sizing and proportions to better match NFL players and how they look on Sundays. So the shoulder pads have been made a little bit smaller, the helmets are bigger and tilted more, so these players look exactly how they do in real life, whereas in some of the past games, they just didn't really look accurate. Their heads looked tiny, the pads looked really bulky, and that's just not how players look nowadays. The overall goal is to make the small details feel more alive, helping players, officials, and equipment look more authentic and connected to the physical nature of football. They even improved the cloth physics and wrinkle simulation that make the uniforms on referees look more natural when throwing flags. And it gets even better than that, because when you talk about the little details, they're also introducing deluxe tradition reskins, which allow stadium presentation to better match the specific identity and uniform teams are wearing on the field. This means when you put on a throwback uniform, the mascot will match, the stadium graphics, the ribbon board, and the presentation packages will all match. Now, they did add some of this in 25, but they're just going deeper with it this year, adding much more presentation around changing uniforms, because when you wear a throwback or an alternate, everything in the stadium should kind of fit that. EA Sports says that the goal is to make uniforms feel like part of the larger team identity, helping stadiums better capture the history, culture, and atmosphere fans associate with their favorite franchise. And something else good that they're doing is expanding the player and coach customization as a whole, with new options designed to better reflect today's NFL. Coaches can now customize hats, visors, headsets, and additional clothing items, which they did a lot of good stuff with adding coach customization last year, but there were still some missing things here, and it looks like they've got that covered this year. And for your superstar mode, career mode players, you've got 32 new heads, greater facial variety, a new lean body type, and more. And of course, if you've been following my channel at all, you should know by now, but EA also added several highly requested equipment options. Now, we're seeing more things added to college because college doesn't have the NFL restricting certain things, but even with Madden, we've got the hanging mouthpieces, higher scrunch socks, smaller shoulder pads, shortened shooter sleeves, and clear reflective visors. But I know there's definitely some new cleats and other things that we're going to cover when the game actually drops. And it's not just about the broadcast or the equipment or the referees, but we also got new stadiums as well. The Bills Mafia, your stadium stadium is in the game. And they've got all of the features like the stack design for the close field proximity, the canopy system covering 60% of the fan seating, and the state-of-the-art video board sound and amenities. And they also added Melbourne Cricket Ground. With the NFL continuing to expand worldwide, they want to get more of the other stadiums in the game. And here's another detail that I personally really like. They added an indoor fieldhouse practice facility. I think the outside facility is still going to exist as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I think now you can choose between the two, which is pretty cool because sometimes teams do practice indoors. And it also says whether you want to run a full 11-on-11 game, work with just the offense, test concepts, or get comfortable with your playbook, the new indoor practice facility gives you a fresh environment to do it. Now, when they say full 11-on-11, that sounds a little different because I don't think that was in practice mode before. Like, you can run a full scrimmage, so maybe that's also another new setting, but we'll have to check that out. And if you want to talk about the little details, the smallest of details, they're covering them more than ever, even down to Caleb Williams having his fingernails painted. Now look, I know some people are going to be like, I don't like that. Why does he do it? It is what it is. He does it, and it's still part of his authenticity. So the fact that he's on the cover and they actually put this in the game, I think it's cool just for the simple fact that he's going to look as accurate in the game as possible. And that should be the goal for not just him, but for every player. I want to see every player get their tattoos. I want to see all of these things added for everybody because it's going to perfectly represent what we see on Sunday. Now, if you thought the presentation sounds good this year, wait till you hear about all the crazy things they've done in franchise mode. You can check that video out right here on the screen.